Hey guys, this is Kat and welcome back to my channel, Booktube Beginnings. This is what I read in January, also known as a wrap-up. If you hear anyone talk about a wrap-up, basically they're just wrapping up what they read for the month. So this is kind of how it goes. It's very simple. You just kind of talk about the books that you read in the month and what you rated it, what you thought about it, would you recommend it. So here we go. I personally like to go in the order that I read it for that month, so that's the order I am gonna present the books that I read this month. I read a total of 5 books and I'm halfway through one. So I read 2 5 stars, 2 4 stars, 1 3.5 stars, and a DNF. So let's get into it. There's always a lot of pressure with the first book of the month, especially in January, because it's like the first book of the year that you're gonna read, and it kind of sets off the year as a whole. Like if it's a 5-star, you just know that you're gonna have a good reading month. So I was so fortunate to have read a 5-star book. So I read The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. Now this is very hyped for well reason. My dog wants to play. Hi. Here, go. If you haven't heard about this book, it's basic. If you haven't heard about this book, it's called The Turn of the Key. It's by Ruth Ware, and it's basically about this person looking for a job, and this nanny position comes out of nowhere, and so she takes this position on. Some weird stuff starts happening in the house. You don't know if it's paranormal, if it's logically explained, but oh my goodness. Okay, so this book is what really started kicking off my thriller love. It's so good. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The twist at the end, if you know, you know. But my goodness, just read it for that twist, because oh my goodness, it's so good. I listened to the audiobook and read along with it, and the audiobook is really good. 10 out of 10 would recommend. The next book I read for the month of January is The Arrangement by Robyn Harding. This book follows a sugar baby and a sugar daddy. Now that's all I needed to know to get into it, but it actually does hold up. It's not like wow factor, like it's not crazy, but I was thoroughly entertained. I gave it 4 stars. I was gonna give it 3.5, but because of my entertainment factor, it was so good. It's not anything groundbreaking, but my goodness, I had such a good time with this. Now listen, like I said, I don't want to say too much. I don't think you need to know too much. All you need to know is that there's a sugar baby and a sugar daddy, and honestly that's all you need to know to get into this, because it was a fun ride. Next, I read Forgiving What You Can't Forget by Lisa Turk. I don't know how to pronounce that. I don't want to butcher it. It's a Christian nonfiction, and it's basically trying to explain like why you should forgive people that had hurt you in the past. And while I thought this was for me at the time, and I thought this was the target audience, this goes deeper into the sense of holding grudges and still being traumatized by what you can't forget, whatever the situation is. And I am not at that point, so I DNF'd it. It's not that it was anything wrong with the book. I think the topics that were being talked about was definitely interesting, but it just wasn't for me. I wasn't the target audience, even though I did think so at the time. If you definitely are, if this like feels like your situation and you are Christian, then I definitely would suggest it, because it is heavily talking about God. But if you are and you have some things that you want to try to figure out and to have a plan of forgiving whatever the situation is, I do recommend it. It just wasn't for me. I look insane. But I don't know how I completely forgot to talk about Saga. I read Saga this month. I liked it. It's definitely different than what I'm used to. I gave it 3.5 stars. It's nothing wrong with it. Like, I want to continue with the series. Again, it's just different than what I'm used to. So eventually I will buy it. I will say it is rated mature, so if you are, I guess, under the age of like, I want to say 16, I wouldn't pick this up, but it's good. I liked it. The next book on this list is Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. Now, this was my first time reading it. I have not read Percy Jackson. I didn't read it as a child, and so I was entertained. In the beginning, I would say was a little slow for me just because I felt like I didn't necessarily connect with the characters until we got to the quest. If you read this, you know what I'm talking about. Once we got into the quest, I couldn't put this book down, and I am excited to move on with the series. I think I will eventually start connecting with the characters, but yeah, it was a slow start for me. It took me a while to pick up and to push through it, but again, once it got to the quest and once the action started, I had a hard time putting this down, and it was lovely. I loved it. I'm excited to continue on with this series. You have no idea. The last book I finished this month was Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson. I will say there's a lot of trigger warnings for this book. I'm actually going to read the trigger warnings that she actually put in the book. The trigger warnings are mentions of sexual abuse, rape, assault, child abuse, kidnapping, and addiction to opioids. I also believe authors should do that more often. This was my first time seeing a novel have content warning in the beginning, so big applause to Tiffany D. Jackson for doing that. Now, though this book was really hard to read, I read this in 3 days. I'm not a fast reader. I usually read a book a week, but I finished this in 3 days. I could not put it down. I will say, if you've been in a toxic relationship or mentally abused, it did, for me, take me back there. And there was times where I was like, wow. Though my situation wasn't the exact same, or it wasn't as harsh as the situation that's in here, it definitely brought back flashbacks, so it didn't bother me. But I'm just saying, like, please go into this book knowing that there's mention of mental abuse, physical abuse. So if you've been in any situation that I mentioned earlier, just read it with caution. Please make sure that you're in an okay headspace, because it did take me back, and I'm in an okay headspace. I just want to put that out there. So I'm gonna say what this book is about. Finally, this book is about Enchanted Jones. She wants to be a famous singer, and she meets this guy named Corey, who's basically like big time. He's a singer, he's a producer, and he kind of takes her on, and things go from there. So the last book that I have not finished yet, but I plan to tonight, and hopefully I can get it done tonight. If not, then it'll just roll over to February, is The One by John Mars. Now this book is so interesting, let me tell you. This is probably another book that I'm gonna finish less than a week because it was so good. This is basically about if like ancestry, why can't I say that word? Ancestry. If ancestry. You guys know what I'm talking about. This is in a world where there's a thing that's called Match Your DNA. There's a website, and you take your swab of your DNA and you send it to them, and they can match you with your soulmate, who you are destined to be with. This follows 4 different characters doing that process, and oh my goodness, it's so good. I can feel that this is going to be a 5 out of 5 stars. It's like truly is so good. Can't put it down. If I'm not reading it physically, I'm listening to it on audio. By the way, the audiobook is chef's kiss. There's different actors for each character, which I love in the audiobook. I love that so much. So if you can get your hands on the audiobook, I definitely recommend. Also, this is going to be turned into a Netflix series. I am interested to see how it's gonna be. Like, I'd be okay even if they didn't follow these characters like if they didn't follow these specific characters, but they had the same concept. Like, the concept is so good that I'd be okay with that. There's no information on cast details. There's no information on anything. It just got posted on Netflix like not too long ago, like the description, so I'm pretty sure things are gonna come out soon. But dang, this has been like such a secret, because usually you can find like cast details, who's gonna be in it, and there's nothing online, and I'm upset. I just want to say thank you guys for actually subscribing and giving me a chance. Like, I feel so happy. Like, every time I got a notification of a subscriber, I'm like, oh my goodness. I was so excited. I talked to a couple of you guys. Listen, I don't want it to be like a one-way street. Like, if I didn't subscribe back, like, please let me know. I will sub back. I think this is so fun, and I finally have people to talk to that like books, which is so exciting. I plan to continue this, and I just want to say thank you for all the love that you've given me on my first video. If you haven't by now subscribed, please do. It would mean so much to me. Please give this video a thumbs up and hit the bell notification as well. It really helps with the algorithm. So I will see you guys with another video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye.